Dave from Dave's Glory Shopworks here, and we're continuing our cheap 440 build. Yet again, this is part 12. What we're going to be doing in this episode is checking over our original oil pump, and we're going to see if we can reuse it. Honestly, everybody says, oh, it's cheap insurance to buy a brand new pump. You know what, that is true, but when you're doing everything on a budget as best as you can, there are all kinds of specs and measurements you can take into consideration to see if you can actually reuse the pieces. If everything falls into line and all your measurements are good, then what's stopping you from reusing it? It's a good serviceable part. So our first measurement is the filter base surface. Now you need a straight edge for it, and I don't know if you remember in my video on the cylinder heads, you need a straight edge you can trust. So I don't have the machine straight edge that I had for checking the cylinder heads, but I do have a nice straight piece of 40 thou feeler gauge. So all you have to do is go across the two short bolt holes, because these are what actually retain the pump outer housing, the oil filter housing, to the pump body. So starting right there, and we want a max wear of 1.5 thou. Now, I don't actually have a 1.5 thou here. I seem to have misplaced it, but I do have a 2 thou. So if I put my 2 thou on and it wants to drag it at a place, then I know we're there. Like, yeah, you can see it. It wants to wiggle and pull it. I'll check it in a couple of places. Yeah, you can see it. It wants to wiggle and pull it. And again, it's trying to wiggle and pull it. So I can confidently say that that is less than 2 thou, and less than 2 thou is probably 1.5 thou. So I'm happy with my first measurement. Check. Okay, next measurement, outer rotor length. So here's our outer rotor. It looks a little bit beat up, but honestly I've polished it and everything's going to be okay there. It'll spin freely. I've already checked that. So our outer rotor length, maximum spec, is 0.943 of an inch, so just under an inch. So there's our 0.9. We'll go like this, and we'll read 0.9, 10, 20, 30, 40, so 0.948, and we'll check it in a few places. 0.947, 0.946, and 0.950. So overall, we are nowhere near, 0.9478, sorry. So we are nowhere near where we're going to be for max wear. So this guy's good that direction. So, good, check mark. Our next measurement is going to be the overall diameter of our rotor. So with that in mind, we just simply pull this guy out, and there we go. So this is speccing out at 2.472. We'll check it in a few places. 2.4. Wait a minute, hang on. Yeah, there's 5. 2.470, 2.471, 2.470. All right, now if we take a look, we kind of run into an issue. We're at 2.496, so let me just double check that measurement, and I'll be right back. See if I wrote it down right. Okay, so always double check what you write down. The measurement is 2.469, not 2.496. Thank you, dyslexia. So we'll just change that. All right, so that being said, we're okay, because we're at 2.47 to 2.472. Bing. Okay, next item on the list is the outer rotor pump body, outer rotor to pump body clearance. Alright, so we'll take this guy out of there. We'll insert our outer rotor pump body. Actually, the easiest way to do this is, so we don't want any more than 14 thou. Now we're going to start with a 14 thou. Here's a 14 thou feeler gauge. Easiest way is to try and slide them in together, and I can't. So we're already good, but we're going to go down a little bit. So that was 14. Let's jump down to an 11 thou. Nope, I still can't fit that in. 6 thou. Okay, there we go. We can fit a 6, but I can't pull the 6 out. There. So that's too tight. So that means it's smaller than 6 thou. And I just want to check. I got a 5 thou right here. So there, see, beautiful. I can just pull a 5 thou out with nice drag. So we've got 5 thou, not 14 thou. We're laughing. That's a good tight clearance. Okay, next on the list, inner rotor length. So our inner rotor, we measure the length, and we have got 0.943. It wants a minimum 0.942. So let's just double check that across a few places. 0.943, 0.943, 0.9, ooh, hang on, wrong spot, there we go, 0.943. This one's really good. Yeah. Okay, so 0.942 is our minimum, and we're well above that. Next is inner rotor depth in body. Okay, so we've got our oil pump and housing. We've got our outer rotor, and we put our inner rotor in. Now we're checking basically the depth between this and this, and if it's more than 4 thou, then that means it's wore out. So we're going to grab, I'll put it down here. We're going to grab our nice thick feeler gauge again. That's going to be our measuring tool. Okay, and we'll go across there. So we want the 4 thou, 4 thou, 4 thou. Here it is. Come on. Okay, so on the side, we are going to hold this across. We're going to insert our 4 thou, and I'm not, if I push that, I can't drag that. So 4 thou is too big. I do have a 2 thou here, and I can just drag the 2 thou. So we're actually really good on our clearance. So any tighter than that, and we're like 0 to 0. So, which honestly, if you check out the spec, I mean, we were about a thou off on the 2. So our inner rotor depth in body is good. Next one, the tip clearance between the inner and outer rotors. And we want 10 thou. Now, I don't have 10 thou with me right now, but I do have an 11 thou. According to their diagram, I have to measure right here, and I can just get the 11 thou through. Alright, so if you couldn't hear it in my voice, I was slowly talking myself into running this oil pump anyway. All of my other specs were great. Some of them were close, but for the most part, they were all within spec. But him, 10 thou. So I went ahead, and we're kind of interjecting in the middle of the video. I went ahead and I assembled the oil pump. That's why it looks all oily and junky and everything. I took out more feeler gauges. I wanted to know where my clearance was, and I realized that I had installed my rotor backwards. I messed up on my witness marks. So I thought, hey, maybe that's why I've got this extra clearance that's nagging at me. No, that wasn't it. I went ahead and I measured out, and I finally got to 17 thousandths of an inch. 17. The pump is wore out. So now, I ain't using it. But follow along the rest of the video and that'll get you an idea of the completion of, say, a good pump. This is why we check everything, guys. Thank you. Alright guys, for assembling, lots of guys like to pack their oil pumps full of grease and all that jazz to get a better, quicker suction. Honestly, I am always happier with just clean engine oil. It's even better if it's the engine oil you're going to run. And I really can't remember if this is the same oil as I'm going to run, but I know it is clean engine oil. So that's going to do it. So we want to coat everything inside. Even inside our little rotor stem area here. Coat that. And then same thing, we take our rotor, the inner rotor, we coat him. Give it a little bit. Make sure you get the faces, because those are wear areas. Coat the stem. Alright, slide him in. I like to rotate him around a little bit, make sure the oil is mashing. Okay, next up, take our outer rotor housing, or our outer rotor, sorry. Too many terms. Give him a quick little lube down. Make sure you get the faces, the outer diameter. And this one went in like this. I'm just using witness marks to make sure I get the sides correct. So now our next item is going to be our oil pressure relief valve. So a little bit of lube on the outer housing piece here. First thing you put in is your oil pressure relief valve. Again, you want to give it a little bit of lube with oil. Make sure it's going to move smooth. Make sure you know the orientation of which way it goes in the bore. Very good to keep an eye on disassembly. And again, we're going to use a high pressure spring like that. And then we just take our cap cover and our gasket. There we go. And I'll snug that down in a bit. Just going to add a little bit more oil on the valve and in the areas. Lube. And we take our nice brand new O-ring, give it a tiny bit of oil. There we go. Take our second O-ring, a little bit of oil, put them in the groove. Take the two housing bores, match them up, lay one on top of the other, put in your little 1/4 inch bolts, 5/16 bolts. Now before I snug these down, I'm going to grab a couple of 3/8 bolts because that's what mounts it to the housing. And I'm going to make sure these 3 holes are lined up together so I don't have any issues when I'm putting this together. Also, last but not least, we take our last O-ring. This seals into the engine where it sticks in to its mounting bore. O-ring on, give it a little twist, a little turn that makes sure that it's not bound up one way or another or twisted. Alright, time to grab some bolts. There we go. Snug it down. Make sure the bolts still move freely in their bores. Okay, it's snugged, and then we torque it down to 10 foot-pounds. Alright, we got a torque wrench set at 10 foot-pounds. These guys still move nice and free, so we're free to torque down. And last but not least is how hard to tighten this guy. Alright, there is no spec I can find through the factory manual, but since I only had pretty light duty effort to get it off, we're just gonna err on the side of caution. We'll get it snug, and then we'll give it like a 1/16 of a turn. There. We're good. Take those guys out. That's it. One oil pump that you've gone through completely. Alright guys, that concludes our oil pump specification checking video. We also modified it for the high pressure relief valve spring and resealed it, torqued it to spec. So that was part 12, and stay tuned, we got a few more videos yet. Thanks for watching guys. Please like, subscribe, and share.